Questions tonight about the conduct of at least one Toronto police officer, his activities on more than one occasion, and why he is still employed. What can be done to keep bad cops off the payroll? Watch this. He's accused of not just one case of bad behavior, but this Toronto cop is facing facts for plenty of misconduct, far from what you might expect from a police officer.
Don't try and kick me. Get your f***ing feet in there. There you go. Use your pepper spray, guys.
Constable Matt Brewer, caught on video in 2016, is accused of using profanity and pepper spraying a man in handcuffs in the back of his police car. In another case, while off duty at home, officers from Durham Police were called to Brewer's home after neighbors heard gunshots. He had been threatening his wife and himself before firing multiple shots into the air outside his home.
A Toronto police officer has been arrested and charged after allegedly stealing alcohol from a store.
Former Toronto police officer has been charged with a historic sexual offense.
The SIU says that it was notified of the allegations last March. The alleged incident occurred in Toronto between 1981 and 1982 against a female victim when the officer, who has since retired, was a member of the Toronto Police Service.
Boris Borisov sat emotionless in court as the sentencing submissions from the Crown and the defense were tabled before the justice today. The Crown is asking for 7 years in penitentiary, calling him a fraudster in uniform. In May, the Toronto officer was found guilty of 15 offenses, including stealing from dead people who he was tasked with investigating.
Do not hit him! What the Stop it! Hey!
The probe into a sex trafficking ring surrounding a 16-year-old victim started with taking down her pimp. But when investigators began zeroing in on the clients, they found one of their own.
They certainly are offended by the notion of one of their own members being involved in any type of crime, particularly when we have a number of officers who commit, their lives to investigating these types of crimes.
49-year-old Constable Peter Roberts was among 10 men arrested.
He has 11 years of service with the Toronto Police. He's currently assigned to 51 Division and he's suspended with pay.
Toronto police officer is facing criminal charges in a shooting that left a black man seriously injured earlier this year. The lawyer for that man is now speaking to the media. Let's listen in.
He feels relief knowing that what he experienced has come to light, and the SIU, at least as far as he can tell, agrees that what happened to him was wrong.
For the first time in history, a Toronto officer has been charged with murder in the line of duty.
The case dates back to 2010. Eric Osawe was shot and killed while police were trying to arrest his brother.
Toronto police officer is facing criminal charges more than 6 months after a man was shot in North York. The shooting took place near Black Creek and Trethewey back on February 27th. According to the province's police watchdog, officers were called to a park after a man was seen carrying a knife. 2 officers tasered the suspect, and a third fired his gun twice at the man. The 31-year-old was taken to hospital with serious injuries.
A police officer has been arrested in connection with the assault of 2 women. 51-year-old Constable Nicholas Kolotzopoulos is facing 3 charges, including 2 counts of assault. Police say they launched an investigation Saturday after a man allegedly attended and addressed and assaulted 2 women. Police say the officer charged has been suspended with pay.
2024 has learned a Toronto police officer has been charged with impaired driving and refusing a breathalyzer. 29-year-old Constable Jason Bogue has been charged after a vehicle collided with a dump truck on Highway 400 just after midnight on Tuesday. OPP say this happened near Teston Road. Toronto police say Bogue is a 9-year veteran assigned to the organized crime enforcement.
There is a perception that the SIU is filled with ex-police officers who are policing police. Is that true?
Yes. Well, I'd like to address that issue. It's an important issue because I know that it has been raised. The SIU has a complement of 14 full-time investigators at the moment. And of those 14 full-time, we call them lead investigators. 12 come from completely non-policing backgrounds. Now, Aside from the full-time investigators who work out of our SIU headquarters, the SIU has a complement of what we call as-needed investigators. Now, they are stationed throughout the province. Now, the majority of our as-needed investigators are former police officers.
Policing is a brotherhood. We know how strong
Yes.
police unions are, for example. A vast majority of the officers that you call
Yes.
to help your lead investigators investigate are ex-cops.
Yeah. I understand the criticism. I get it. And perhaps we can do more to sort of recruit people from non-policing backgrounds to achieve a better balance. Here's the other thing I would say, Farah. The director of the SIU can never have been a police officer. That's legislatively prohibited. So at the end of the day, who decides these cases? It's the director. The director can never have been a police officer.
Do you think systemic racism exists within police in Ontario?
Systemic racism is system-wide. It affects all institutions in society. That would include policing, that would include education, health.
Would it include the SIU?
It would include oversight. We are part of the system.
These are officers that are, that are paid by our tax dollars to serve and protect. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't they have an extra level of scrutiny?
Well, I have the rules within which the SIU operate, right. And I will push those rules to their legitimate limits. I will continue to push those rules. But I do need to stay within those limits. And I maintain that working within those limits, that we are able to do professional, competent criminal investigations.
When we look at SIU cases, we see that 96.4% of cases, in those cases, there are no charges laid. Mm-hmm. With a statistic like that, do you understand the public's concern with how the SIU operates and whether this process is fair?
Okay. Well, I would say a couple of things with respect to that question. So the mandate of the SIU is to conduct criminal investigations. That's what we do. So when the SIU does not lay charges, what does that mean? It means there weren't reasonable grounds to believe that a criminal offense was committed.
Ask you, Chief Demke, while I have you in the studio about something that's in our newscast today, and that is about this case which fell apart last month, a case involving someone where an illegal gun was found, but essentially that evidence had to be thrown out because the judge in the case ruled that Toronto police officers lied about their use of excessive force. Those officers, as far as we're able to tell, face no consequence. They're still on the job. In some cases, they're teaching other officers. Some of those officers have been caught before lying in court. As chief, what do you think ought to be happening? You know, is it the right thing that there does not appear to be any consequence when officers are caught lying on the stand?
Well, obviously that's not the case, and you know the way you frame the question is certainly not my perspective.
Okay, tell me your perspective.
Obviously, allegations that arise in court are taken very, very seriously by our organization. We engage our professional standards, and we review the circumstances. And
the Toronto Police sees everyone from this perspective, small and insignificant. Each person was put on this earth for a purpose. Whether that purpose was for good or for bad, that is not the decision for the police to make. Who are they to delete a life, to jail someone that is innocent? We as people need to stand up to this oppression and start forcing the police to respect our rights and our lives. And that time is now. The lies, deceit, beatings, and murders will stop if we start holding each and every cop accountable. Chief Demke is an absent chief who needs to step down from his plausible deniability. I never knew property crimes were punishable by having an assault rifle rammed down your throat. Seems to me that your officers have control over you, not the other way around. Wake up, Demke. This is Mad Lab Press.